welcome back to the Success Blueprint with Greider and Peterson. We're glad you guys are back with us, and we're excited to continue part 2 with Brandon Lee. Glad that he's been able to stay a little bit longer with us and talk to us a little bit more. Talk so much about development and a little bit of your background and where that came from, which pretty incredible background as far as how you're able to learn from each step of that. And I think a lot of people, it's funny where you see people that they end up where they are because of their background. And I think that was a little bit what happened here, is because the different experiences you had led you to have kind of a complete picture of development and allowed you to go out on your own. And then I think so many success stories we've talked to is there was a point when there was kind of a bottom, where you were let go or something like that that kind of sparked that, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go out on my own, which is really cool because so many people don't. So many people just start throwing out resumes and not putting faith in themselves. But the fact you had confidence in yourself is pretty awesome. So love that. So continuing on that trend, you've been developing more on your own now for how long?
Last about 6 years.
6 years. Okay. And that was obviously a good decision.
It's been great.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that, I know you've helped out a ton of people around here, and I'm excited to work with you on this project coming up, and I think it's going to be really good. But so from there, you obviously have other interests. You definitely keep busy. I don't know where you find time to do the development side, and then you've got your hand in coaching high school sports and soccer, and then also on city council. So first of all, just because I kind of like soccer. World Cup's going on this year in the U.S. So what got you interested in soccer?
So I grew up playing and really enjoyed the sport, but really it was coaching because I felt like it was a fun opportunity to be involved with youth, but also spend time with your kids. And my kids, so early on when we lived in Minnesota and my boys were younger, I was coaching anything that they wanted. So I coached basketball, I coached baseball, I coached soccer. I even coached 1 year of football, right? And had I just enjoyed coaching. It was fun being out there with kids. They keep you active. And again, I think coaching it's an opportunity, I think that that coaches have to truly, like, you can be influential, right? If you take the opportunities to do it. And I certainly have been influenced by coaches in my life and wanted to do the same. And when we moved here to Idaho, my two boys got very focused on soccer, and so pivoted to just coaching soccer once we moved here to Idaho. So I've been coaching soccer for about 20 years.
Wow.
And coached my sons up through until they graduated, and now coaching on the girls' side. And I coach my youngest daughter, who I've been coaching for the last, about 8 years for her.
Okay.
And I'm just starting now into my 4th season as the varsity coach at Idaho Falls High School.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just think sports in general, right? I think just they provide an opportunity. I really do believe this. Like it provides an opportunity for kids to learn lessons that they can't learn in a classroom.
For sure.
And I just think there's life lessons, how do you deal with a difficult teammate? How do you deal with, maybe it's bad news that a coach gives you, right? How do you deal with disappointment, right?
Yeah.
How do you be a good winner, right? And you know what I mean? And
how do you stay motivated when you're not the star?
Exactly. Like there's just so many.
Be a good loser.
How do you be a good loser, right? How do you lose and say, man, that's tough, but boy, I still love this sport, right? And applaud to my teammates, I came into a program that hadn't been to state in 22 years. And
wow.
My first year, we went through the season and we were kind of mediocre, but in my mind, I'm like, I have all this talent. We got to figure this out,
Yeah.
And we get the way that high school sports work is kind of you go through your regular season and it doesn't really matter until when you get to districts, because everything kind of resets into this district tournament.
Okay.
And my girls just decided, it's time to turn it on, right? And so we lost to Shelley twice, right, during the regular season, which they had Idaho Falls, and Shirley had a good team that year, right?
Yeah.
But we get into the district tournament and we just smoke them, right? And the girls just start playing really well, and then we win the next one, and now we're facing Skyline, who had also beat us twice during the regular season, and we end up winning in PKs, right? In this,
wow!
And then we go to the district tournament, the championship tournament, or the championship game of the district tournament, and we end up beating Hillcrest. So we win districts, we go to state, and then we took third at state, right? It had never happened in program history. And I was like, this is terrible, because now we've set the bar really hard this first year back. But it was such a fun thing to see these, see the girls and
such a quick turnaround.
See them recognize that what they could do with talent, a little bit of trust in each other and trust in their coaches. And so, we it's been fun the last few years, had a lot of success. There's a lot of great soccer programs here in our area, and it's been fun to compete at a high level and see what kids can go do with their talent. So.
I love that. And there's so many analogies, of course, between sports and business and everything. And the kids there's kids that just kind of get it.
Yeah.
And then there's others that just struggle, and it takes them a little bit longer to get there. And same thing with business and that as well. So it's I'll bet you see that all the time, where you've seen some students that they got it from the first bit, and then some maybe took a year or two into the program before they actually understood and then really thrived.
Yeah. I think, this comes back to the opportunity you have as a coach, right? To what are the things that you want to teach besides just the X's and O's of the sport, right? And for us, like I let my players decide what these are, but I said, we're going to establish pillars of our program. What are the pillars that we want this program to be known for, right? And I think my favorite one that came out of that discussion, we now do it once the varsity team is formed. We go and, like, this is for any sport, right? When it starts, you have these really intense 2-a-day sessions for at least 1 to 2 weeks, right? And then we go on a little mini retreat, and we come together after all that hard work, and we're like, what do we want to see? We set goals, and we review the pillars. So in year 1, we set the pillars, and then each year I let the girls look at it and say, are these still the 6 pillars that we want, or do we need to change one? And if so, why? And what should it be? But one that has been there for all 3 years is what the girls came up with, NBF, which stands for We Are a No Beef Family, right? and I love it because this was from them, right? It's the concept of, hey, we love each other, right? And we're here together, and if there's a beef, we're going to solve it fast because we don't have beef in our family.
I love that.
Right? And, sports teams, again, it gives you these opportunities to do that. And intense seasons, right? They're short seasons. They're only a couple months, but man, you can learn a lot in a couple months.
For sure.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. And I think those girls will remember that, and it sets them up for success in life, I think. I mean, they're at that age, high school, and talking to other high school coaches and that. I think the coaches that have that mindset of, okay, I'm not just there to coach these guys to win. I'm there to help these guys learn lessons that'll set them up for a better life, really, and to deal with disappointment, to deal with those things, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that it's pretty amazing. One, that you're willing to spend the time, because I know that's a ton of time. But do you think you'll keep coaching when your girls are done, or do you think you'll step back?
If my wife will let me, I for sure will.
Cool.
It is intense. I coach both at the high school in the fall, and then the spring. Soccer has become a year-round sport, as many have, right? So you have a couple weeks off in November and really a couple weeks off in July, but that's kind of it. Other than that, you're playing soccer, and you got to love it, right? Both if you're going to be a player or a coach, you got to love it. But when you see things that come full circle, I've had a couple of super rewarding moments. One of my players who played with my son, who I loved, but was a total screwball, right, when we played together, right? And like Energizer Bunny could never, attention span of all of about 6 seconds. I knew I better get my punchline in fast, right, if I was going to have this kid hear what I wanted him to hear, right, because I was getting one thing with him.
You're getting one shot.
And But he took enough of those things and loved the sport, and he became the head coach at Central Wyoming Junior College here 2 years ago.
Wow.
And, you know, he and I have had some great conversations, and he talks about how he instills some of the same principles that we talked about when I was his coach, and have maintained this great relationship. Well, he came and he recruited a couple of my players from high school that went and played junior college. And he took that program from what was like, I don't know, like 1 win and 14 losses. They were, you know,
Ouch.
in the bottom, right? And he took them in his second year to their conference championship. Okay. Really just turned it around, right? And so that got a lot of attentions, you know, from the coaching world throughout the United States. And he just became the associate head coach at Nichols State University, which is a D1 school in Louisiana. And he's now recruited one of my center backs who went with him to Central Wyoming to go play D1. And it's just super fun
awesome
to see, again, kind of just the concepts and the principles and this, you know, we always kind of say, I like to have a little chip on our shoulder that, yeah, we're from Idaho, and yeah, we're volunteer dad coaches, and we're going to go to these tournaments. We're going to stick it to, you know, we're going to stick it to the California teams, right? They're not going to know who showed up from Idaho. They're going to think we're some podunk, you know, rednecks, and we're going to go play, you know?
Yeah.
And it's fun for me to see him take that same chip and that same attitude of, you know, wanting to work hard and instill these principles for these collegiate athletes now that, again, just continue to set them up, I think, for good habits in life.
I love that.
That's awesome. It always blows me away when I see coaches that can turn things around that quickly. We've had a couple examples here with Coach Gonzalez up in Rigby.
Amazing.
We also were able to talk to Coach Bone with the Spud Kings.
Oh, yeah.
Who turned around and in his first year won the championship, and now they're going
So
to an upper league, which is pretty cool. What do you think that is? I mean, some coaches, what is it about some coaches that can make that switch and flip that switch so quickly? You've done it with IF.
Yeah. That's a good question. I've asked that a lot. Like, I've studied, like, Anson Dorrance, who was the head coach of UNC's women's soccer program. He's the most winningest coach of any program in the NCAA of all time. He has like 22 or 24 national championships, right? Wow. Nobody has done that in any sport.
Close. Yeah.
And so, you know, as I've read his books and listened to, you know, different things that he has done and said, I feel like those coaches, they instill, you know, this desire to work hard, right, and be competitive, because your top athletes, what they want to compete no matter what. They want to compete at, you know, even at practice for who's the quickest to drink their water, right? Somebody's going to compete and want to be the fastest at that, right? Doesn't matter how little, like, and so he got this notion of just making fun competitions to to get the best out of every athlete at every turn, right? So everything mattered. Their time together, if they were together for 90 minutes, he would make the most of those practices. And so I try to do that as best as you can with a small, obviously they have an unlimited staff of people and money, right?
Of course.
But it wasn't always that way, right? And so you can do more when you have more staff and et cetera, et cetera. But to the extent you can try to just pull the most out of your athletes and make the most of your time together, I think is important. But I do think that there's, I learned a lot from David Adams, who was the coach of the girls' time at Idaho Falls High School before me, and my daughter got to play for him. And I of course I want to win, as every coach does. You're competitive in nature. It doesn't matter, right?
You're not in coaching if you don't want to win.
Yeah, I think you do. There's just something in you that you want to help your athletes, again, perform at their highest level. But you know, Dave had this innate ability too, I think, and it was genuine, and this is what I wanted to emulate, is he had a genuine love for his players, and they knew it. And I think when you have that type of relationship, when you really love your players, they feel it and they know it. And I think that drive, not that they're playing just for you, but it does drive, there's some motivation there, because now they're playing because they love you, they love their teammates. And so when you have that genuine, I think, feeling and sense of family, not just words, but you play for each other, when you can get your kids to play for each other, you get a different level of performance.
And on our team, I mean, we talk about teams, right? And teams are teams, whether it's a sports team, whether it's a high school team, a grid kid team, a real estate team. And so like everybody wants to win, and that's the end goal, right? And that's what Jason and I have been learning and trying to get better and trying to perfect of, well, what's the day-to-day things that we can do, and hopefully bring our agents up that they understand that if they can do these things, then we'll get that end goal. And that's, I think early on in our partnership, we've just always wanted to win, and we just leapfrog that from start to finish and forget about all the things in between. And anyway, so like what you're saying, I think that there's a lot to that. Like you want to win, but then you're instilling these things. Well, I know if they all get along and they have no beef, and no beef culture,
I like that.
And they love each other, then they're going to probably work a little harder for each other or protect each other. Or then they're going to, it just starts building these paper thin layers that then turn into a ream, that you can't tear apart.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like as a coach, like one of the greatest feelings of satisfaction, right, is when you see one of your players sticking up for another one, right? You're like, hey, that's my teammate.
Yeah.
Back off, right?
Yeah.
I love that, right?
Awesome.
Like like you're going to defend your team, I'm going to let a lot of things slide when you're defending your teammate.
That yellow card isn't so bad if it was defending somebody else.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
That's really cool.
What else do you have going on?
What's been really fun is getting involved in our city. I was recently elected to Idaho Falls City Council. I just being again very honest. I didn't really have interest in doing that a couple of years ago. In fact, I did not want to do it. But for the last few years, Lisa Burtonshaw, who's our mayor, who I think is an amazing leader and an amazing person. Yeah. From the coaching side, her husband Bryce is actually one of my best friends. And so when we would get together for dinners and we'd go out for social things, once she got on the city council, I would, she and I would talk about, hey, wouldn't it be great if the city could do this or the city could do that? And I would have lots of ideas that I would be happy to share with her, right? And she was great to listen. And when she decided to run for mayor, she said, I'm going to go and do all these things that we've talked about to help make the city better. And she was like, you should run, right, in this spot, and we'll do, you can help me, right? Yeah. And I was like, you're right. I need to do that, right? And so it was really, I love our community. I love our city. And again, I love Idaho. And I did feel like, hey, there's some things, again, coming kind of back to the real estate world, right, where I'd worked with different municipalities around the country as we'd gone in to do development projects. And so I felt like I saw some best practices that had been occurring in different places. And so wanting to bring some of those learnings that I had here.
And we need them.
As we grow, right, because I have seen communities that just kind of let growth happen, and then those that are pretty focused on, and strategic on how growth, so I call it quote unquote smart growth. What does that mean? Yeah. Well, to me, it's about having that big picture vision and trying to, you have to balance, right, property rights that property owners have, with their property, and balance that with the need for growth as growth is going to occur. Because I said this often in the campaign trail that the cat is out of the bag, that Idaho is a great place to live. Right. People are learning this, right, and they want to be here because it's a great place. We have great neighbors. Like you guys are great neighbors, right? People want to be your neighbor and your neighbor, and I think that's legitimate, right? I think people, it's not just because hey, we're so close to the Tetons and Island Park and all that. While those things certainly
they're great, but
are helpful, there's a lot of pretty places that you can live in the United States, right? That have that, but I do think that there's more to it, in my opinion, right? And it is that the people around here are pretty awesome. Yeah. And so I think that is a big attraction. So getting onto city council and learning, it's been tremendous. Like I really had no appreciation for just how complicated it is to quote unquote to run a city. But where Idaho Falls, they own Idaho Falls Power, they own the utility, right? Yep. They own the airport, and so there's all these things that require good leadership and as well as subject matter experts to help make those entities run successfully. And for me, just super grateful that Lisa is doing that. I think she's an amazing mayor and leader, and I don't know another person who loves our community truly like more than her. I feel like we as residents are truly lucky to have somebody like that as our mayor. So it's been really fun. I'm super hopeful that we can continue to find ways to get us a really good community center, and I know that's a priority of Lisa.
Okay.
And I'd love to. I think that's a longer term project, but I think that she's putting in the things in place that will provide opportunities for that to come to fruition. So I'm excited for that.
So community center, what would that entail?
It's too early to say what that could exactly is going to be, but
okay.
For me, it's going to be a place that can bring multiple generations together, right? I see it having, things where, grandma can take their grandkids, and maybe I'm going to throw out things. Nobody hold me to any
we don't
of this,
know.
Right?
Yeah, obviously it's far out.
In my own mind, right? I see something that, hey, maybe it's got an indoor lazy river, right? Because we think about things that, for us, this type of once it gets warm, we love to be outside, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's about what can we have that brings people together in the colder months when people need to be inside. And so I want it to have activities like that and opportunities that people are comfortable coming together with. I don't think it doesn't need to be like a fitness gym, but maybe it has some components that allow people to, again, get some exercise and but come together. So.
Love that.
I love that. And I just dealing with different cities and counties and things like that. I mean, I feel like a lot of the intentions are good. Nobody really wants to be on these councils to just wreck things, right?
Yeah.
But I also think having the experience and being able to go back and then bring in different ideas of having that big vision, because it is tricky with property rights, and people don't want growth, but it's funny watching those Facebook posts or people, going through and they think that 1,000 people could show up at a courthouse and it can change. Well, it helps, but they do have property rights, just like everybody wants to have their own property rights. So I love that you have that you can foresee that and help kind of navigate through and make it flow a little better so that we don't have some of the craziness, that happens. And so,
well, it's been fun to both educate myself, but also share some of the things too with our communities, right? Mm-hmm. And the city. And once people, I think, understand, I think, again, if you haven't been involved, you just may not really know, well, what does a city council do and what can they do, right?
Yeah.
And what can't they do, right? If Jason owns a piece of property, the city isn't going to go to him and say, well, you build this, right? That's not what the city does, right? Yeah. Jason has the idea. He's like, no, I want to build this. And then he can come through and navigate through the process. And if those rights to his property allow him to do it, then he goes, right? And the city council just says, good job. We hope you're successful, but you're operating within the rights that have already been bestowed upon you through the property that you own, right?
Yeah.
It was funny during the election, there were lots of concerns about the number of apartments, for example, that were being built, but a substantial number of those projects had the rights to build that type of use for 20 plus years.
Right.
Like we're talking about council before the current ones, right? Who granted those rights upon annexation. And so again, just educating, I think as people start to understand, what property rights are and what city councils can do, then they're like, okay, that makes sense, right? There's rule of law, right? There's process. there's things that go into all of that. But ultimately, I love it because it's market driven, right? And if something gets built in the real estate world, right, but then the market turns it down, it has to change, right? Yeah. And so maybe let's go to apartments, for example. if we get too overbuilt in apartments, right, and now a project can't make sense, well, then they're going to have to figure out how do they pivot that, and do they go into a condominium that now it's fee title, and now maybe some of those units are in a price point that are deemed more affordable, et cetera.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, a lot of people are like, man, we're overbuilt with apartments. And in my head, I'm like, I could see why you think that. There's a lot more apartments here than what I've ever seen. However, the people putting money into these things, they're not stupid or silly. They're going to run all of their metrics and everything that they need to do to feel good about it. And if those all check the boxes, and there's a lot of boxes, we've been in these due diligence processes. And then if they don't, they're not going to build it. If they do, they're going to build it. Now, if it doesn't work, is it on the person who lives 4 streets over? It's going to be on the person who invested this many millions of dollars to make it work, right?
That's right.
And so that's what it's interesting, because you go to some of these meetings and they're like, man, we have way too many. And it's like, well, do you want affordable housing? Do you want competition to keep the pricing down? Or should we just only let these and then no more, affordable housing? Like, the only way to have affordable housing is to have a surplus of affordable housing to up the supply to,
the basic nature of supply and demand. It really is, it's a powerful concept, right? Yeah. I think too is, I obviously, look, I love where we live, and I love what we have, and I do realize that with growth comes some change, right? But I think that the people who are here, right, are the reason why it's so awesome, and so that doesn't need to change, right? And so, maybe at some point we're going to be sitting at a traffic light for 2 cycles instead of 1, right? And that happens sometimes, right, as you're going along the corridors and whatnot. But with good growth, like, I think about, here's another example that's fun that everyone may not know about. So we have what's called the BMPO. It's the Bonneville Metropolitan Planning Organization, right? And that consists of the county, representatives from the county, City of Idaho Falls, City of Ammon, Iona and Yukon, and ITD, right? So you have representatives from those 6 groups that are planning the infrastructure needs for the region, okay? That group has existed for over 20 years, right? And they've tried to have plans put together that everyone would say, every one of those partners would say, yes, we're on board with that, right? That has never happened until Lisa Burtonshaw was chairing that committee. Okay, now every one of those people in that group, we're like, yes, we're adopting that plan. We're on board. We're in sync. We're going to actually run this as a planning organization and make it make sense. And so as I was in a meeting for it just yesterday, and so I look at the things that are coming on an infrastructure standpoint in the future, I'm like, yeah, those are the things that we need to be doing, right? Those are the right priorities. Everybody's on board. Everybody's talking about this, access management plans and all the things that make smart sense. Everyone's together, and I love it. It's so exciting to see.
And that's what I love. Like, our towns here, like what you're saying, the cat's out of the bag, and for so many years, for whatever reason, we've been hidden pretty solid. And I think we don't know if it's COVID, if people just traveling through and driving through, and then all of a sudden they're like, man, I want to be here. But we've been in this infancy stage for so long, right? Yeah. And we have to know that. And now it's going to grow. Like, growth is inevitable. Yes. And I have neighbors in my ward, or neighbors that hate the fields turning into subdivisions, and I tell them, like, I hear you, I understand, but it's inevitable. And people are having kids, and their kids want to come back, and then it's just compounding. But doing it smart, because we are in this infancy stage. If we don't do it smart, now you're going to have growth, and it's going to be terrible. And so I love the progression, that you're having and Lisa's having, and that can see that vision, because it just opens it up that it's going to just be better. It's going to be better growth. It's going to help with traffic. It's going to help with the planning.
I hope so, right? And I think that as we grow, right, I feel like we're we're close. Like, one of the things that obviously concerned about, right, is just the cost of living and taxes, right? Those are big things that impact people, property taxes, right? But when you have more people that are moving in, and if we're doing it, in a smart fashion and trying to be smart about where we densify, right, that means we have less funds that have to go through to increased infrastructure, right? We're sharing existing infrastructure that's already there. And then that enables, in my mind, we'll see as this comes to fruition, right? But that as the people who come in, and now our pool of taxpayers has increased, right? Hopefully that does allow us to do things that make sense, like a community center, right? Where we can do maybe a few things that truly have never really been on the table before, because you have to have just running any kind of city. When you think about plowing roads, road maintenance, maintain the utilities, all the different things that it's expensive to deliver the product that the city delivers. I'm amazed at what our city, what they deliver. I truly am. I had some idea, but it was pretty small before getting on council. Now I really recognize we have so many great people that work in the city and make it run. It's pretty impressive, and I'd put us up against any city in the country in terms of what our people and what their talent is and what they're able to do. So as we just grow that tax base, I don't think we're that far away from being able to have some things that are more appreciated. As we continue to grow out our trail system, which is really fun, and as that starts to be connected. Our Parks and Rec has just gotten back in compliance after 30 something years of being out of compliance with what's called LWCF funds, where we can get matching federal funds for certain park developments.
Fantastic.
And that's going to help. So there's just things that are happening behind the curtain, so to speak, that are being done right now at the city that, again, is just going to continue to elevate our living experience, I think. And I get excited about it when I hear about those things.
I love it.
It's exciting to hear that people are in there looking to be more proactive than reactive.
Yes.
I think it seems like I don't know, I haven't been a part of city council, but it seems from an outside perspective that it's been a lot of reactive for a lot of years. And it kind of fell into that groove. And maybe there were a handful of people that tried to be proactive, but really couldn't because of everyone else. But it sounds like more people are getting on the same page that are involved, and they can plan a little bit. I see down in, you go to greater Phoenix area, and they have huge freeways and infrastructure out, and there's nothing.
Right.
They're knowing it's coming.
St. George is the same way,
yeah,
right?
St. George is the same way. They build these way ahead of time because this is how we want the growth to go, and that's how it goes. And then it seems like here it's always been oh, well, this came up, so maybe we need to put a light here because this already went in, and things like that. And so it just seems I'm excited to see do you feel like the council and obviously the mayor and that are more on the same page, or?
Yeah, I really do. I think, everyone on the council, it's fun to look at their backgrounds. For me, like Jim Francis, for example, who's on council, he was my high school American history professor. Okay.
Oh, really?
He was my favorite teacher that I had in all of high school.
Really? Okay.
I kept very few things from high school, but I have about a 4-inch binder that I still have to this day from that class of all my work product that he required of me. I don't know how he got it out of me, because I was one of those kids who I just wanted to be social in high school. I didn't want to do any work.
Yeah.
But he got it out of me. And anyway, so I love to be on council because he is one of the most thoughtful people in his decision making. He is so strategic and thoughtful in his process as he weighs out every decision. And so when we have guys like that on council, I may not always agree at the end of the day with him. We might have a different viewpoint, but I could never ever say, well, he wasn't thoughtful in his approach.
Right. His intention wasn't there.
His intent, right, to represent and do what he thinks is best for the constituents, like the residents of Idaho Falls, his neighbors, right?
Yep.
You can never question that. And I feel like everyone on council has that mindset. And then when you have Lisa, who's just a doer and just gets things done, not a lot of time for.
That's awesome.
wasting
Yeah.
time.
When you talk about being proactive and reactive, that's saying like people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan.
Yeah.
And I feel like with cities, I mean, that adds to as much as anything ever. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, it is complicated, right? I mean, it's
For
not
sure.
just one thing. And so there's so much. And like you said, you've got to have the experts and you've got to have that additional information and you've got to have those things coming in so that you can make good decisions and good decisions going forward. And it's hard to see in the future too. So,
And I think what's nice too, I keep coming back to Lisa and what she's been able to do, but I would say I don't feel like the relationship between the county and because at the end of the day, we're all one big community, right? So I mentioned all those players that sit on the BMPO. Well, we all live in the same community, right? Yeah, we have little boundaries that outline what our particular city is or whatever, right? But the reality is we're all one community,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's been really fun for me to see because in the past, I think you've had somewhat of some adversarial relationships between the county and the city. And if the city wanted to do something, the county may just say no simply because the personalities in play weren't. There was too much adversarial relationships.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's all gone. Like I don't know that
awesome.
the relationship
That's great.
between the county commissioners and the city of Idaho Falls has ever been stronger. So it's really fun to see that collaboration and recognition from all those players. Same with Ammon. Like Brian Powell's an amazing mayor in the city of Ammon, and what they're doing there, and just it's just fun to see because I do see like everyone wanting to march towards this vision of collaboration and what's not a vision or a standing of like, well, this is mine and this is yours, but this is ours. Right? This
Absolutely.
community is ours together, and let's make decisions that make sense for the whole and not just a part. So it's fun.
I love that. That's great. So it's pretty new. I mean, you've been in there, 6 months?
6 months.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
what would you say is maybe the biggest hurdle or whatever that that you've had to overcome or that you've been able to be a part of to help work with? Or
That's a good question. I might have a different answer in another 12 months from now.
I'm sure it.
But I think maybe what I'd say is not necessarily a hurdle, but more of an appreciation that I've gained for truly how I think it's easy for us when things are running smooth, right? In the city, right? You and I can get to work every day and we don't think about the traffic lights. We don't think about how clean our street is. We don't think about, that our sanitation gets picked up on like clockwork, truly, like every week. We don't think about the roads, when things are running smoothly. It's only when, oh my gosh, the road didn't get plowed this morning, right? And somebody gets fired up over something or that traffic light isn't working or whatever. And so I think it's an appreciation for what everyone is doing to make our life experiences pretty nice.
Yeah.
Like I really do. Like, I mean, living here, like it's pretty nice. When we travel, I mean, all you guys travel, right? When I'm traveling to Northern California, right? And I've got to go, or Washington, D.C. I lived in D.C. for 2 years, right? And I remember my work commute, I only had to go 6 miles. And it's an hour every day each way, right? To go those 6 miles. We don't have anything like that here, right? Thankfully.
Not even close.
Right? Not even close, right? And so I try to, remind myself if I'm sitting on 17th Street and I'm there for 2 cycles that life's still okay.
Yeah. It took me 10 minutes to get through 17th Street instead of 5,
Right, exactly. So I think it's that I've just gained a deeper appreciation for what everyone at the city and that the county does so that our collective lives pretty dang good.
And I think people don't think about that. I think people think about the one kind of thorn on their side.
Yeah.
But they don't think of all the collective that it's being done.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's always that, and that's something that's been fun, and you come across too, is you have people who are like, hey, this is an issue, but here are some solutions that we could look at to explore to make it better. I'll have those conversations all day long, right?
Yeah.
The ones that are a little bit harder to have are like, hey, this is terrible. You guys should fix it. Okay, how? I don't know. That's your job. You should fix it, right? I'm like,
Okay.
I love to have conversations about, again, is life perfect? No. Is the city perfect? Absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, we should just coast, because that's not what, any growing city should be doing. The mentality is how do we continue to grow with strategy and purpose?
Yeah.
But as we do and we look to solve problems, I love it when somebody comes and says, here's something you might be able to do. And even if that's not the solution you take, if it starts and it spurs the conversation, well, what are some ways to make that particular element better? I love that. I'll have those kind of conversations all day long.
There was a conversation I had about a month ago with somebody, and they were talking about just frustrated with all of the townhomes and apartments and things like that and the growth. And they were kind of going off on these things. And I just said, well, would you rather have the issues and problems that come along with growth or a city that's dying? I mean, because there are those in the U.S. There's cities that are struggling and retracting. And man, I'd much rather be a part of a growth mindset and having those issues than having the issue of people getting out of the area.
Well, more restaurants, more places to work, more things that people are able to find jobs. Or going out of business,
right?
Yeah,
you could not be more right, Jason. Like, again, I'll go back to my days at Target, right? So there was a period of time where we had to look at store closures, right? And Target would usually close, like every year, they might close the 2 or 3 kind of worst performing stores, right? And when you go into those markets and you see what's happening and you see the signs on the businesses that have closed, right? And the homes that are up for sale, that are in foreclosure, and
they're upside down.
Because they're upside, and you see that, oh man, I'll deal with the challenges of growth all day long over
try to get a city back on track
over that. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
And there's so much excitement. Like, I love, like, you look at what the lab is doing, right? And the number of jobs that they're bringing in on an annual basis, and then how that matriculates out, right? That's awesome. Fun. It's fun to see, right? Like, you got good, smart people come in here, great jobs. I mean, it's fun to be part of. Again, I'll deal with the challenges of growth. I'd take that any day over what you just shared. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody wants that, right? You want to be on a team or anything that's increasing versus decreasing. Yeah. I mean, and no one's staying flat. No town, no team, nothing is staying just even and coasting. If you're coasting, you're regressing, right? And
I think so. Yeah.
So I think, and so which part do we want to be a part of? And it's way more fun and exciting to be a part of something that's growing. I love it.
Well, Brandon, what do you feel? What is it that you feel that highly successful people do differently?
Oh, geez. That's a really good question. What comes to mind, I think, first is having, and again, this is going to sound cliche, but I really do believe it, is just having an attitude of optimism, right? Finding a silver lining, no matter what's happening out there, right? Finding that silver lining and way to, I'm not just saying, oh, you lie to yourself. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think that there's ways to say, okay, yeah, this is really challenging. How do we, but let's find the positive in this. I'll come back to soccer, right? In my post-game talks and chats that I have with my team, I have shout outs, right? And I have the players shout out to, like, they're responsible to come up with these. Who did what well, and what did you see? What are you going to call out your player for, right? If you come to my post-game talks with my players, you won't know whether we won or we lost because of what the girls, how they're talking. They're calling out their teammates about the positive things that their teammate did. And so you can leave, a situation that may have been a really painful loss. And yeah, that loss stings, because losses sting, right? But if your teammate called you out for something you did really well, it stings a little less.
Right.
Right. And you're going to remember how you felt when your teammate called you out to say, man, that, just the effort, the work rate, whatever it is, right? And they're specific. I asked for specifics. What did they do, right? Yeah. And so when you have your team calling out, and taking time to recognize what went well, I just think it helps that overall attitude and mentality, so that when things aren't going perfect, right, how do you deal with that loss, right? You get past it, right? And you realize life is going to continue to go on. And so I think just that recognition that what's the worst that can happen? It's not that bad. A lot of good things still happen even in a loss.
Yeah.
And you just build off of the positive. So I think that, to me, that's the biggest, is just recognizing, take time to recognize what the positive things are and building off of those.
I love that. It reminds me of recognizing effort versus result.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so many times we're so focused on the result, and maybe they didn't even do anything to get that result. It just happened. And then it's like, well, let's recognize that effort that both put into it, whether that was a good result or not a good result, but the effort and rewarding that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Agreed.
Cool. I like the shout outs. Maybe we should start doing that with our team.
For sure.
I started that when my boys were like 7 and 8 years old.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
And I kind of thought maybe that would be something that we eventually grow out of. And no way. Like my seniors,
probably better now.
My seniors in high school love that component of our culture as much as anything else that we do. Yeah, I being called out by your peer for something that you did well, that sticks with people. It sticks with kids. I mean, it sticks with me. I love it.
A lot of times it means more than a coach.
Yeah, when somebody says, something to me, calls me out for something I did, I still feel it. I'm like, thank you.
That's right.
My son's a typical teenager that doesn't talk much or give any answers.
Yeah.
And he's on a football team, and that's what they do. And I called him, and I was out of town, and called him how practice was, and it was good. And I was like, well, what made it good? And he said, well, I got, it was his first role going into tight end, and the senior tight end called him out of how well he's doing and how well he's progressing and how much and you could tell that just the momentum, you can see that with kids.
Awesome.
Of what kind of is what fasts them a little bit, what gets them quicker. And you can tell that kid noticing him, because then he's like, well, I'm doing the right things. I need to do more of those right things.
Yes.
And so anyway, that is awesome.
Yeah, and especially when you have like senior leadership, like I think, whether it's a kid or adults, right? When you are in a position of leadership and you're taking the time, it might be something really small, right? But it can mean a lot. It can be very impactful, I think.
Right. I love it.
That's great. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's fun chatting with you guys.
I know. We'll have to have you back. We could definitely talk for a little bit longer, for sure.
And we can progress on some of these other things that you're doing and see how they're going. And
yeah, I'd love to come back and give you guys an update at some point on the city, and you guys can ask me questions on anything that your listeners want to know about, and I'm happy to come and share my opinion. I'm very clear to say I'm only one of 6 council members, so I can only speak for myself. I never speak for council.
I love it.
I like it.
Well, thanks, Brandon. Good. I appreciate you, and we'll further this up maybe 6 months down the road.
That'd be great.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you.